So where before I took you off out of your flow, we were talking about source control. So
Yeah.
give us perhaps a few examples of how we can control it at source. So
Yeah. Well, the two ideals in a way are green, blue roofs and permeable surfaces.
Yeah.
What happens there is all the rain that falls on the roof or on the pavement goes through the pavement, the roof acting like a meadow, the permeable pavement operating like a porous soil. I mean, I live in Gloucestershire, Stroud. You know, we've got oolitic limestone here, so the water goes straight through the oolitic limestone. So these two techniques are great because as the water goes through them, it takes out the particles, which means it takes out the microplastics, it takes out the, and most of the pollution is associated with these particles. So they're taken out. Obviously in the roof it's not very severe, but on permeable pavement it takes out all the oil, it takes out all the tire waste, it takes out everything. Water goes through this stone and comes out the end, and it's essentially clean. So those are the two perfect ones. But historically, and in a lot of situations where you can't use those, you have.
Like you were so just to get that. So even if you're going through the permeable paving,
Yeah.
it's going through the so it's being filtered via the joints and then being filtered through the sub base and then into a basin underneath.
Well, it depends where you are. If you're on most soils, you don't need a liner. Some of it, depending on how impermeable the soil is, you can either let it go soak into the ground, which is where it should go, or you can let it out because you've effectively created a little pond, temporary pond, and so the water goes out through a flow control at greenfield runoff rate, like it would have left that location in nature. Yeah. So it is mimicking, again, it's a mimic, if you like, of a free draining soil. Just as the green roof is the mimic of the meadow. Yeah. But where you can't do those two, you have to think of some other way. So there are a number of vegetated systems. So you can go through what's called a filter strip, which is really a glorified grass verge. The vegetation takes it out, and the pollution is locked right at the beginning of the system in the soil. Yeah. So the particles are locked there. It's the same with a filter drain, but you have to be a bit more careful because that can clog up. Or you have something called a forebay basin, similar sort of thing. The water comes in at a point, and first you catch the first part of the storm or the first part of the rainfall, and that takes out those particles, takes out the oils, takes out the other pollutants. And ideally, when that's full and has got what we call the first flush, that's the first lot of water that pulls pollution off a hard surface. Yeah. Ideally, the remaining water is substantially clean. So you divert that bit into, say, another basin where you allow it to infiltrate, or you use it for biodiversity or whatever. But in all of these systems, you have to have some mechanism which takes that first flush of pollution out of the rain, the runoff.